I'm Zoe.
Hey guys, and I'm Ben.
And this is
Yeah,
Penny in the Landline, episode 9.
Penny in the Landline.
Stupid with love.
I wanna get it, but how? Good at podcasts, but stupid with love.
So we're nearing the end of our first series, and this might come as a surprise to everyone because we did not say anything about it. But our plan is to do series of 10 episodes each. So we're on episode 9, so it's our penultimate episode of season 1. I was about to say season 10. No, season 1. Series 1. I don't know.
Yes, we've been doing this for 10 years. We've only just been releasing this recently, so we have a whole backlog of podcasts we never released from the last 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. From before we knew each other, we've been recording this.
Yeah.
And clearly we're so slick and smooth.
We are really good at it. Yeah, we're really good.
Our podcast abilities, that we've been doing this for 10 years for. So, we each week of this wonderful, wonderful podcast, we bring a secret topic to each episode, and we discuss it live on air, and it's always very hilarious. I actually forgot who went first last time.
You went first last time. It was you last week.
What did we? Oh yeah,
you talked about sleeping last week.
Sleeping and celebrity. So it's your turn to go first, Ben. This time.
Well, okay, everyone. Hello, everyone. Apologies if we sound like we're on absolute flop form. I think, yeah, we sound like we're like sedated. I think we're edging towards the end of the series, and I think much like everyone else in the world, the time of year, the season, the flowers of our youth are all starting to wilt. And we're all just chugging along, just trying to make it work. So here we are. So apologies if we sound a little bit uninspired, but don't worry, guys. I come with a fantastic topic that I thought of about 4 minutes before we started recording.
Perfect.
And that topic today is it's actually a very, very in-depth, complicated topic. However, I'm going to go at it at the least at the most base level, shallow way I possibly can, just to make it slightly entertaining, even if it may come across as potentially uneducated / insensitive. So today we're talking about fast fashion.
Oh,
fast fashion, the fashion speedy. Fashion so quick you can't even see it. Fashion. Yeah, it's like the world of fashion, cutthroat, quick. The devil wears Prada. We are
Meryl
going
Streep.
to iconic. We're gonna discuss fashion and fast fashion, not fashion in general, but fast fashion. Obviously, fast fashion. Me and you can both agree, bad vibes.
Yeah.
Making people work for pennies an hour, producing garments that are poor quality, shipping them across the world, and then, producing them in trend cycles, putting them in landfill, destroying the planet, all for the sake of a quick buck. It's all pretty bad vibes, I'd say.
Yeah.
That being said, sometimes I indulge. But I am often a vintage clothing buyer these days.
Yes.
And I just want to know how you feel about fast fashion. Do you ever indulge in fast fashion? Because I think it's such a simple thing. But there are some people I know who will never, ever buy anything new. Obviously, other than like underwear and socks, because that's kind of, you can't unfortunately... Well, not unfortunately. It depends what you're into. If you want to buy used undies, there are definitely ways you can do that. But not through a traditional resale outlet. So, other than like maybe shoes, people often a little bit funny about buying secondhand shoes, which I get as well. But shoes, underwear, socks, other than that, there are certain people I know that only buy vintage.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm pretty close to that. I'd say 90% of what I buy is pre-owned.
Yes.
95% even. I think I can only think of like 3 things I've bought in the last like 2 years that weren't pre-used. I just want to know your thoughts on that.
I think that's, because to be honest, like, growing up, I, like, and this is just into a wider conversation about, like, shopping habits. I was not very much a shopping person. I found it very overwhelming. I found all the fluorescent lights very overwhelming and trying on clothes, and it was always after school. And I was just like, oh my god, cannot do this. So I think the environment of fast fashion in the first place, like walking into H&M is like walking into a Primark is like walking into the depths of hell itself. Like
Primark H&M is not great, but Primark is genuinely the worst building on earth.
Like, Primark is
it is that's the seventh circle of hell, and it's all just everything in there is on sale, and I really think that all the staff should be given a folding seminar, because it's like, I don't know why they all just pile it on.
Yeah, I think all the staff should be given like a hero's badge for their service of working.
A lobotomy.
No. Yeah, can you believe when I first traveled to the UK as like a little trip, like we went to Primark to be like, oh my god, we don't have one of these here, and it was like a fun, oh my gosh, let's go to Primark. Can you imagine? And now I think about it, I'm like, I would rather just seep through the floor. But that being said, sometimes you like kind of, there's been a couple times where I've like had to buy something from there, like if I needed like black shirts for like stage management, or like if I needed, back when I was doing more musical theater performances in societies, like if I needed like a tank top or something, I would go to Primark to buy that, but I would still be like the worst possible environment possible. So yeah, anyway, so when I was younger, I hated shopping in general, so I never really got the urge to do it. But then again, we'd only really shop like once, like maybe like twice or 3 times a year properly. Like it wasn't really something, I mean, sometimes we'd go after school and stuff, but like I just am used to doing like a big, you know, let's just get the clothes we need. But then I think about, like, if you have good quality clothes, you don't really need to do that. Like, and that's the thing with fast fashion, is like they're designed to disintegrate and not last, that you buy more. So it's kind of like, why do I need to keep buying shirts? Like, I should just have a shirt that that lasts a couple years and not just like 6 months.
You're so right though, like you're completely correct. In the sense that everything is designed to break, so you buy more of it. But that's just modern society in general. But it's just really, really messed up. But like, it's interesting how fast fashion, like, obviously it is so terrible for the environment, and it is so messy. And like, you're right, when I was younger, I was the opposite. Like, I wasn't like you. I've been a shopper, a consumer since day one. So I have like been like, even as a little kid, I was like, buy. But I didn't really realise the environmental impacts of my purchases until I was probably like in my late teens. I didn't even consider it really. Right. I knew that things were made in China and things like that, and like in relatively immoral environments in my subconscious. But I think I never really addressed it until I was about 17, 18. But that's when I started to also realise, in a more selfish sense, obviously I massively care nowadays. I actually don't buy from fast fashion largely because I think it's just evil, and also like I think it's a bit dystopian when you just go into these places and it's just like piled with garments, and there's just so much stuff, and it just costs a fortune, and you just know it's going to end up in a bin. And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, this is insane. It feels a little bit gross and icky. But then at the same time, I think I probably got out of fast fashion because I just decided that, like, vintage, I think the term vintage, my mum always used to say it's not vintage, it's used, and I was like, yeah, hilarious, it's actually so true. Like, vintage is such like a stupid phrase. It's like, if we kind of added on to things to like make us feel better, but often it's just made better as well. Like, so that's kind of why I buy it often. It's just like, oh, okay, it's like made it up in a period of time where things weren't made to be disposed of.
Yes.
So I think that's often why I started buying things that weren't fast fashion. Not for ethical purposes, lol, but mainly just for budgeting purposes as well as quality purposes. And these days it's both the ethical elements and the fashion elements. But I think it's interesting because every now and then I'll buy something from fast fashion. Like, I'll buy a t-shirt if I really love the design,
right? Or
I'll buy like a pair of jeans, but it's like very so far a few between. But then it's like, but there's also the element of like shaming people for fast fashion is inherently classist in and of itself, and that's a really deep thing in itself, because like often fast fashion just, if you can't go to if you can't find your size in a charity shop, then like you just can't, like, you have no other choice but to go on fast fashion. It's like, and if you can't afford or haven't got the afford the time to go looking for clothes, it's easier just to order them online or go into a store that tells you what to buy.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's such a class-based thing, and I think to shame people for buying fast fashion is to like avoid the real problem, which is just we have a culture of like ultra consumption. But like, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's just gone to the point now where it's like, I do not envy being like a teenager. And in the sense of like, again, like trying to keep up with like fashion trends aren't like, there's no fashion trends anymore because they're like, they last for like 2 days. I mean, I saw, this is onto a completely different conversation, but there was I got like a notification from BBC News, and it was something that said like, nowadays like girls as young as 8 are using anti-aging makeup, like skincare, and it's like, oh, what is happening? What is even going on?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just, and it goes into this again, like this bigger thing of like beauty standards and like having to keep up, and it's just so bizarre because like I couldn't tell you right now like what's in fashion, like, because like, and nothing like lasts. Like, I'm not on TikTok right now, like I don't even have any idea. Like I feel like when I was a teenager, like going to the stores, you could kind of like figure it out, and like, you know, again, because of what like these big brands are pumping out and things like that, and you know, you would see them on the sales rack like weeks afterwards. But now it's like, oh, something's on the sale rack like almost immediately after it's just come out, and it's just like, it's just so exhausting. Again, and I'm coming from a completely selfish personal standpoint, not talking about any of the moral or ethical quandaries. I have not been happier, like, not really having to go to these stores. Like, again, like, you know, going to charity shops, sometimes it's just a much nicer experience. Like, it's smaller, and like, the lights aren't as bright, and like, you know, yeah, sometimes it's like, oh my god, what is happening here? And like, what are these pieces of bizarre clothing? But I usually find the experience of shopping much more less stressful.
I guess part of that is because you aren't told what you have to like as much either. Like when you go into, I don't know, like when you go into like these big these massive corporate chains, you just sort of walk in. There's like, you will buy this. This is what's on sale, and like you must find something that's within these limitations. Whereas when you go to a vintage store, charity shop, it really is just luck of the draw. There's no real like coordination to it, because you're right. The trend cycle moves so quickly these days. And like, I actually like, it's actually kind of embarrassing because when I was like 15, 16, you'd go into H&M or whatever it is, Primark, whatever, and you'd see what everyone was wearing, or you'd see what people were wearing on TV, or you'd see like, it all just, or YouTube, okay, all kind of coalesced and stuff. Whereas now, like, I go into somewhere like Primark and H&M, and I'm like, I look at things and I'm like, that's out of date already, and it's new, because they physically can't keep up. And it's like, what are you meant to do? Like, obviously, Shein releases like 100, like, was it like 30,000 new styles a day or something insane? The failure that is the contemporary fast fashion industry effectively has pushed people to be more individual, because people can't keep up, so they give up, and then they end up finding what they actually like. And I think that's not everyone, but I think a lot of people I've spoken to, like for myself included, like for someone who keeps up with trends in the media so much, and pop culture and films and music, I do not keep up at all with what's up with clothes. Even with these, for example, for Christmas, my mum got me some Birkenstocks, some Birkenstock Bostons. The Bostons came out a few years ago, and I remember them going around on TikTok with all these kind of like Ralph Lauren old money boys, you know, it's that kind of weird fake aesthetic thing people make up on TikTok, like, you know, mob wife winter kind of vibe. So like, it was like, oh, it was ridiculous, like psychotic phrases people put together. And I remember seeing them around Bristol a little bit with all like the posh kids, and thinking, oh, I love those, but are they actually going to like stand the test of time, or are they just another shoe that we're all going to laugh at in about 5 minutes? And it actually has been a few years, and they are still popular, so I decided, I actually really like them. I did like them originally, and I got myself a pair. So I think there's an element of these things where the fast fashion, because Birkenstocks aren't fast fashion really, well, they're not, because fast fashion is, you know, crazy turnover, different styles, different designs, and these have been around for like a really long time. But like, I think it's not, I don't think people should necessarily like completely cut fast fashion out, because it's not practical either sometimes. Like, you just do have to buy things, like you said, buying tops for your job, or every now and then, like, you can see a top and think, oh, I quite like that, like, I don't think you should be made to feel awful about that. I think it's just like honing in your consumption and being more conscious of what you're doing, as opposed to like completely like making yourself feel bad for it. Because a few years ago, I went to a talk for a writer called AJ Barber, and she wrote a book called Consumed. And me and my housemates went to go see her do a talk, and the book's good, but the book is understandably angry because the fast fashion industry is so immoral and so fucked, and like this is an ethical disaster in terms of like developing countries and workers' rights and stuff like that. But it just felt a little bit out of touch sometimes when I was reading it. I was like, this is like, to be the kind of revolutionary force that people who are anti-fast fashion expect people to be, requires this unbelievable amount of privilege and time and energy to put into it, and people just don't even have the time, income, anything to really think about these things. It's such a complicated thing, isn't it? Like, I just don't. It's like, are you allowed to just enjoy consumption if it brings you a little bit of joy? It's like, or should you, you know, be completely steering clear? I don't know where you lie on it, but I just think it's a really confusing topic, you know?
It is. I definitely do agree. I think it's yet another part of our lives that is fluctuating, and I'm kind of like interested to see what's going to happen, you know, in even like 2 years' time. Like how like, if it feels like it's going fast now, like how much faster is it going to get? You know what I mean? But very philosophical and very knowledgeable topic discussion, Ben, despite our mutual
thank you
sleepiness and a general
ennui, disdain for existence. Ennui is literally the only thing I can explain how I feel right now. Ennui.
Well, how about this? I was struggling to figure out my topic, but I'll try to we'll try to make it all. I liked what you said last week, light and frothy. A frothy little topic. I like that word.
Come on.
And it's still somewhat discussionable as well. So what I would like to talk about is making friends as adults. Ooh. And how different it is to making friends as youngsters, because it's very different, and you and I have spoken a little bit about this as well. And again, with the, as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic affecting youths such as us that were just upon the cusp of entering proper adulthood, because let's be real, when you turn 18 you're still a child.
I'm not going to be deadly honest with you. I'm 24 and I'm still a child.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of, again, the way the experience we had of you and I of COVID having happened halfway through our first year, and then us emerging after it like little baby deer, socially inept and unable to know what to do, because like friendships as kids is sometimes easier, but then you end up being like, if we had met in different circumstances, would we have been friends, or were we friends only because we were in the same class together and things like that? So what are your thoughts on adult friendships and making friends as adults?
I always think this, because obviously at the moment I'm kind of I will be moving to London in the next few months. If I have to kill someone to do it, if I have to kill a Londoner, drag their body into the basement and live in their apartment, I'm going to do it. If I have to crawl into the skin of a dead corpse from a London citizen, then so be it. But like, I was thinking about, my mum was saying to me today, she's like, I don't want you to be lonely in London. And I was thinking like, oh, I have friends. Like, I've been looking around where I could possibly be living, and I have friends all over London. And I'm like, oh, well, London's so big. And I'm like, will I actually get to see these people if we're all busy working? I'm like, am I just going to be a lonely boy?
Yes.
I'm thinking that, oh, I'm really good at making friends, but like, I've only ever really made friends in environments such as, well, I made friends, but that's not true. I made a lot of some of my closest friends working at Starbucks when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's also because the pressure wasn't on, and because we were all kids, and like we were being looked after by our families still, so we kind of could be silly and make friends. I do wonder, I think making friends as adults, it's difficult just because it's such a depressing and such a like a bleak topic. But like, this is why that we are just stretched. I mean, obviously I'm not even a real adult yet. I'm living at home still. I'm like a fake adult. You're stretched so unbelievably thin as an adult to you know, look after yourself, be healthy, be fit, be sociable, try and have romantic relationships, try and save money, try and keep up a good this, that, the other. Like, have to have a spy, have to have savings, have to go on holiday. Like, it's so difficult to balance everything and all these expectations that I think it's actually really hard to find the time for like things such as making friends. And it's interesting you say this because I was watching this video by Mina Lee, and if you listen to Mina Lee, I love her. She was talking about third spaces and how as a generation, like Gen Z and people our generation who are just newly adults, there's this massive lack of third spaces. So like a third space is obviously, first space is home, second space is work, third space is like a coffee shop or a bar or a communal area. And how, like, because of the economy and because people's finances, those third areas are kind of diminishing, and how it makes it quite hard to make friends as adults. And I just think, obviously, me and you are kind of on the precipice of like this kind of awkward in between from like moving out of young, kind of post-student academic vibes into adulthood. And I just do wonder, like, who will my adult friends be? And I think it's quite hard to make friends as an adult. I mean, what were your kind of thoughts on this coming in?
Yeah, I think for me, there's this weird, and this might be more of a personal thing to myself, where I kind of always struggled with like knowing the different steps of a friendship. So like understanding like, oh, is someone considering me like a good friend or a best friend and things like that, or like what the natural, like, are we at a point where we're like hugging when we see each other, or are we like little social signifiers like that. And even as a teenager, I found it hard, but it was kind of easier to figure that out as children and teens because, your parents would be like, oh, you guys are such good friends, or you just be sitting together at lunch and things like that. But as adults, like, because the way you use your time is so specific and like, you have to book in time to hang out with my adult friend, it feels like a bit more within your own power. And again, like, who you decide to spend time with isn't like out of your control like it maybe was in school or whatever when you were younger. So for me, I'm like, oh, I've only met this person a couple times, but are we at a level where we're like texting and hanging, like going for drinks, like what's happening? So, and I feel like also like COVID also impacted this because as a already quite socially awkward person, that definitely did not help because it just encouraged me to be a little loner instead. So now I'm like, oh, what do I even do? But then, and this is the thing I get comforted with is that I keep forgetting we're literally baby because we're in our early 20s. And loads of people find like really close friends when they're in their like 30s and 40s and 50s and things like that. Like, you're not that kind of possibility is also kind of comforts me in a way, because I think there's a lot of pressure as those youngsters to go out and be super social, but we don't even know how to do that and we can't afford it.
I mean, that is absolutely right there. I think to do with, in terms of COVID, that's definitely fair enough as well. Like, I was thinking when you brought this up, like when I was 21, because I'm a year older than you. I was 21 and I was in my third year, about to turn 22. We went back to uni after having so much time online, and I had literally I remember going in that day, getting dressed up like it was my first day of school when I'd meant to have done 2 years of uni, going in and literally not being able to talk to people. Like, I was like, I can't talk to anyone. Like, I can only talk to a certain group of people because of the people I was used to speaking to in that period of my life. And so I got back into people I didn't know and people around people that I wasn't 100% certain of. It was like starting from scratch, and like I was like having to learn how to socialize. And I think we are part of a generation of people where the internet as well has both such a blessing and a curse, because we have such strong online relationships that can falter in real life. And even with my closest friends, I can't talk to my friends because I can, but sometimes I meet them in person, I'm like, I've forgotten how to talk to a person. I'm like, how do I talk to a human being? Like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? It's just really, it can be really complicated. It's like, I think we're so used to I think we live in such an isolating period of time. I'm really interested to see how we do make friends. And, I've only, to be honest, I've found in recent years that the friends I've made, like later in my life, have been much better friends. Not all of them. Like, I a lot of friends from my youth, obviously, who obviously listen to this podcast as well, I'm still very good friends with. A lot of my besties, that's not what I mean. Like, all people I'm still friends with from my youth, obviously, are still people I've brought with me along the way, and are like keepers. But I've also like think that in general, I've come across people that are just a lot more level-headed and can give me like the benefits of an adult relationship more.
Yeah, yeah.
As opposed to like, I don't know. I think sometimes when you're younger, everything's such high stakes, and everything feels so personal, and all these things are so deep and insecure and stressful that like a lot of things you need from a friendship neither of you can give each other. Whereas as an adult, I think it's a lot more sensible, and I do appreciate that. I think I really like those kind of friendships that I've formed throughout university and later in life. You know.
Yeah, and I think one of my kind of favorite top 10 feelings of all time, is
Watch Mojo's Miss Mojo's top 10 feelings of all time.
Yeah,
Number
exactly.
10, eating.
Yeah. Well, one of my top 10 feelings of all time is the feeling you get when you're with, you're with a new friend, or you're with like an acquaintance or someone you've met at work, and then something happens and you're like, we have officially gone from acquaintance to friends. And it's that like a little moment where it's like, oh, like someone made a joke, and then you realize like you have like a very similar sense of humor, and like maybe they weren't making those jokes beforehand, but they suddenly did it, and you're like, oh my god, hilarious. Or maybe you realize that that person has an interest that you share, and it's just that like sudden little like, oh, little feeling, oh my gosh, wait, are we gonna hang out next week? Like, I really, really do love that. And I think I'm more than happy to wrap up this bit with that happy little
Well, I can
friend.
remember that with you, how nice that was. Like, I can remember us sitting in the bowl watching burlesque.
Yes,
And I can remember me coming over and just hanging out with you and sitting on your sofa and being like, this is so bizarre. Like, I can because all the best friendships in my life, I struggle to pinpoint when they became my closest friends. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's proof of a good friendship, because it's natural and there's no like massive signifiers. It's just like, oh, it just kind of fell into place one day, and I think that's quite sweet, you know?
Yes, I agree on this little silly little note. And wagon wheel with 2 C is all I have to say to that.
Wagon wheel with 2 C. Oh, love.
So, Wagon Wheel 2 C, everyone. We are here every Friday. And next week will be our final episode of the series. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll be able to talk about it more next week. But yes, please leave a likes. Please leave feedback on our Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and follow us. Give us those analytics, baby.
Yeah, please do tune in, catch the vibes, come in, and next week will be will be our last episode for the series next week. But don't you worry, this is not the end of Penny and the Landline. There will be more, so just stay tuned. We are going to be expanding Starbucks style. You think we're an independent cutie business right now? Best believe there's gonna be some corporate mumbo jumbo being thrown in the mix. Best believe we're gonna do some mass hiring. We're gonna expand, we're going to pollute, we're going to destroy the planet in the name of business. Okay, so you don't worry, team, we'll be back.
Yeah, you all think that we're from Seattle. No, we're in fact whatever. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyways, see you next week.
See you next week, guys. Thank you. Bye. Stay tuned.